What's going on, beautiful people? Beautiful people, what's going on? Just waiting for our esteemed guests to connect live with us.
Peace, bro. What's good with it? What's the deal?
Man, it's all good in the neighborhood, brother. You gonna be just rocking audio, or you turning on your video as well?
Nah, I'm a just rock audio. I'm looking a little hood out right now, but yeah, I'm a just rock audio.
I say less, say less. Now, brother, do you pronounce your name Geedo or Geedo? I want to make sure I got you right.
Geedo will be correct.
I bet. Oh, let me get my situation here. All right, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another episode of the Philosopher Study. Today we got with us a brother that seems very similar to myself, and those come around very rarely. So once I saw this brother online, I was like, yo, I got to get to know this brother. I got to see if I can learn from this brother, see what we agree with, see what we disagree with, and all of that good stuff, man. We got people up on the YouTube right now, tuning in to you, brother. You know what I'm saying? We're here with Brother Geedo Jalloh. Is that correct, brother? Am I pronouncing the last name correct as well?
Absolutely.
My man. So he's an Africanist that's based in Houston, Texas. Graduated from ITT Technical Institute with a BS in electrical engineering and computer technology in 2012. He studied biblical Hebrew and Imperial Aramaic for 6 years in order to help African American identity extremists cope with the reality of the biblical narrative of the biblical narrative. He has a deep passion for the highly ignored prehistoric sites of early West Africa, like Titchit, Walata, Wagadu, and will unveil missing pieces to the puzzle of technological, economic, and architectural development of West African civilization. Guido is what we would call a history, genetics, linguistics, and anthropological enthusiast when it comes to West Africa and antiquity and pre-antiquity. Outside of full-time work, he works as a self-employed web developer for small businesses and content creators. And if you are interested in that type of information, please subscribe to his YouTube channel, Afri Culture Concepts. That's AFRI Culture Concepts. That's on YouTube. Once again, brother, welcome to the Philosopher Study, man. I'm glad to have you here.
I'm definitely honored to be here, bro.
Yeah, man. Like first of all, I forgot totally how we met. How did we end up even being friends on Facebook? Do you remember?
I'm really not sure. I think we might have had. I think we have some mutuals, and
Yeah.
we might have just kind of clicked. Talking about you know our views on how a lot of information or a lot of our demographic is being represented, publicly or on online, things of that nature. So I think we clicked, and then we kind of just linked up on there, and then ever since we just been going in, just vibing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm glad to have this conversation with you in person, brother. And like I said, man, everything's just gonna roll like a natural conversation. I just want to get to know you a little bit more. You can ask me questions and stuff like that. We can build like that. So the first thing is for those that don't know, you're an Africanist. Can you give the people a description of what that exactly is?
Well, an Africanist, that's like someone that is basically an African enthusiast. I'm real big on seeing, especially West Africa, but I'm proud of what's going on in sub-Saharan East Africa as well. But ultimately, I would like to see you know, whatever I think is formulating in West Africa, I would like to see, some progress or something good come out of it. So basically, as an Africanist, a lot of my studies are centered around that. Uh, I, I've delved in some West African, Niger, Congo languages and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, I don't have time to do everything I would like to do, but I do intend on, getting deeper into some of those Niger, Congo dialects, you know, and honestly, a lot of ways that I think even out here in America, it's just on kind of an African paradigm. I know I'm native to America. I'm an African American. Uh, but I even when I'm at work, I just look at myself as an immigrant. I approach my job as an immigrant the same way an immigrant from Nigeria does. You know, I just roll my sleeves up, get it done, and when I go home, I'm working on something else. Trying to build my own personal, trying to chase my own personal dream. Which is to and be able to employ African Americans, anybody really, but I just look at other immigrants of other backgrounds or whatever, and I really think you know uh, being an Africanist, it's something that you actually can put you have to put forth. You have to make it happen. A lot of people and another reason why I say Africanist because to me the Pan African thing is kind of getting beat up a little bit. It's a lot of baggage behind that. So I just call myself an Africanist.
I see.
And I just, I deal with different people. I deal with all type of Africans, online, in person. I've done business with Nigerians in Houston, So whatever it is, any type of way that I can contribute to the forward progress of African Americans or African diasporans and continentals, I'm with it. Especially if it supports my best interest.
Word. Yeah, I can definitely dig that. Yeah, man. We have some similarities, in that respect. I have a very keen connection with the African community here, and I'm in South Carolina. So far as much that I've been initiated as Isakure, the chief priest of divinity here, by a beloved brother, and it's funny, you know it's weird with titles because it's just something that I've always done. It seems like we have like similar backgrounds, just have a natural proclivity to books and learning and things like that. So it's rare that that we see another brother that's on the same straight and narrow path. So I'm curious, uh what does your origin story look like? What got you to be an Africanist, a linguist, all of these above? What was the road to get you here and interested in these particular subjects?
Well, first off, not to be, with all due respect, I don't want to say I'm a linguist, but I do have an affinity, to examine things linguistically,
Okay.
and I really acquired that from dealing with biblical Hebrew. When I started dealing with biblical Hebrew, and I was trained under this guy. I believe he's an African American Jew. I'm not sure, but he's also a professor of Semitic languages. Uh, so I was studying and dealing with him over the years. Went to a few seminars, and I just it kind of opened my eyes on how you can see continuity, and you can expose a lot of things dealing with linguistics or dealing with a language or an attested language of a certain culture if they have written documentation or anything of that nature, or you can kind of draw historical or somewhat scientific connections with linguistics. You know what I'm saying? It kind of opened my eyes to a kind of an indirect method of research dealing with this African stuff, this African history, and this prehistoric and historic literature that we're dealing with. One another thing is just dealing with just I know it sounds kind of corny to some people, but a lot of this stuff comes from the internet. I see a lot of misinformation,
Yeah.
uh, a lot of misinformation on the internet, and that's one of my biggest motivations. I know it's not, it's probably not gonna get through to everybody, but that's one of my main motivations. I always been kind of like you know, a stickler for being for getting things right, especially academically. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. You're definitely preaching to the choir, in that respect. So yeah, so the subject of today's conversation that we brought up was the issues with Black scholarship. Um, you spoke a little bit earlier about the misinformation, that we see, online a lot from various sources. And I mean, I don't believe only one person has a monopoly of this misinformation that's going out there. I have a theory though. I believe that a lot of our people are susceptible to a lot of this misinformation because I believe that Black folks in general have a natural yearning for learning, and I believe that uh we have that natural thirst, excuse me. Um, but unfortunately, sometimes our research skills individually doesn't match that innate love for learning. So we attach ourselves to things sometimes prematurely before it can even get vetted to whether it's even right or wrong or anything like that. What about you? Like, why do you feel that the people in general, tend to flock more towards the misinformation versus the actual scholarship that's out there?
Well, it's a two-way street. A lot of these guys, they kind of grift towards. They know because they've been through it.
Hmm.
The people that produce the information, they've been through it. They kind of went through the phases mentally, and they know what people want. They know a lot of the people are looking for cognitive bias. They're looking for something that's going to substantiate their claim, regardless of the other stuff that's going to be attached to it. I see it all the time with Hebrew Israelites. They'll look at a verse and they'll skip the rest of the chapter, and they'll see that one verse and say, "Look, see, this is what it is right here." I see it. I also see it with people that they believe in the Kemet stuff. They try to use the Greek historians like Diodorus Library and Herodotus, but they ignore the rest of the story. They ignore everything else. They just use things that they think is going to substantiate their claim. And the guys that put out the information, they know that, so they just feed it to them. They feed it to them. They feed it to them. But a lot of people, I'm really starting to think, and I hate to say this, but I'm really starting to think that people just don't think West African history is enough. I think they feel like you know the dominant population. When I say dominant, I don't mean they dominate. What I do mean like dominant as far as numbers.
Right.
You know, the old scholar, the old scholars. The European scholars or the biblical archaeologists. They were infatuated with the Middle East. They were infatuated with North Africa or Northeast Africa, Egypt. They were infatuated with that. And, people, I don't know why, people feel like they don't have anything because we have a rich history in America and
Absolutely.
in West Africa, but they use that as their sole excuse, as to why they cling to these alternative cultures or identities. So I'm just gonna take it like that. I just feel like they want to be recognized as something great, in which everybody had a great contribution to the forward progress of humanity. Everybody did. It's just that you know Europeans, they were only worried about certain things,
Hmm.
and then at certain times they had they had different motives. At the time when Europeans came in contact with Sudanic people or West Africans and people below the Sahara, you know, they were, they were trying to find ways to justify slavery. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So they're not gonna, and even with that, they still seen technological things that were being used in West Africa that they were impressed by, but they never made a real big deal out of it because they were looking for more reasons to justify why these people should be enslaved. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that West Africa doesn't amount, to other civilizations. It's just that maybe you're not looking hard enough. Maybe you are settling for the mainstream information, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, yeah, that's real, man. Again, man, similar to you, man. I love my ancestors. I love the full lineage, man. But I can't attach myself to Imhotep before I attach myself to my great 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 grandmother and grandfather.
Exactly.
You feel what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because if it wasn't for the lineage that I have here in this country right here and right now, I wouldn't be here. And it's taken for granted the advancements and the strides and everything that we Africans in America have already done. And in my organization, the Moa Temple, we say that we're the African expression of the American experience. So by that, we don't you know what I think it is. I think most of these brothers and sisters are ashamed of their own ancestry here. So when you feel that you don't have anything to be proud of, if you feel that you don't have anything that can puff your chest and everything, you tend to attach yourself to whatever you can that might give you that sense of pride, that sense of personhood, and that sense of all of this, even if they're not even directly related to you in any form, shape or fashion. But my whole thing is, we have a glorious, glorious history of here. um like one of the reasons that the lights are on in this very room is due to black genius. You can scoop your ice cream well due to black genius. You can stop at a stoplight due to black genius. Like all the music in this bad boy
Exactly.
is everything is due to black genius here. And it the shame comes from the act of slavery that we endured. But the conundrum of it is, without the experiences that we had here in America, we wouldn't have produced the people that we ended up becoming. Without that, our music is tied to our experience. Nobody sings like we do. Interesting thing is, like, African Americans, black folk, are the only people that have music that is named after spirituality. Soul, we got soul music, we got gospel, spirituals. And I believe that says a lot just to who we are and our makeup. And despite everything, we were still able to be who we are. And there was nothing that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. You know, and I believe an immense shame that we cannot find pride in ourselves and in our accomplishments here, and it's something that other people can tell, and I think other people can sense the lack of love and pride that we have behind our own ancestry here, which is why
Yes,
we tend to get
yes,
treated
bro.
the way that we get treated. Um, and ironically enough, the problems with some of the mainstream black scholarship is that it reinforces this sense of inferiority that a lot of our people are dealing with, while being painted as the solution to the problem of the issues that we have of self-confidence in the first place. So, you know, I don't know how long
Yep.
you've been on this journey of yours, brother, but I've been on it for quite some time, and the roller coaster of it sometimes makes you just want to say fuck it all. Sometimes you want to be a savior and help everybody. Sometimes you just get burnt out. So I guess where are you at in your journey? What are some experiences that you had trying to enlighten?
Well, man, I've experienced all those phases. The fuck it part, the save part, But I just realized me getting older and more mature, just you know, living through my experiences, that none of that, it's not gonna happen. And my passion for seeking information, accurate information, that's what causes me to continue, to do whatever, releasing content on YouTube, and that's why I should have more videos on YouTube, but I don't, because I have about 200 videos, but that's because I try to make sure, it's accurate, make sure I might not cover everything, but I try to make sure it's accurate, and at least if somebody come ask, I got the sources so that I can pass along the information and they can find out for themselves. But at right now, I'm just kind of content, like I'm just content with, everybody not gonna receive the information. Some people, they just gonna reject it because they want to hear what they want to hear. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So I just take my time and just keep continue to read, and I just try to find new sources of information that's even better. And I try to put things together in a way that's gonna attract people, you know, to where they come from, to places in Africa. And I also plan on, releasing some videos more on African American, history and stuff like that. But it's just one thing I noticed, it's a way you gotta put it out. You gotta put it out a certain kind of way in order for people to marvel on it and to receive it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm built to do that much anymore. It's like, I have a saying that, I'm a beam of light, and that beam of light is going to do one or two things. It's either going to attract people to me or it's going to repel people away from me. And, I believe that the beginning of wisdom for me was allow what it is to be what it is. Allow those that are here, you know, welcome them, and those that are repelling away, repel away from them. And because sometimes I felt like I was under pressure as well. I do these podcasts once a month, but honestly, that's all I can do right now. I'm a father, I'm a student, I'm a library manager, librarian, everything like that. And you know i I still believe that myself and my tribe are still finding one another. You know what I'm saying? Just like how we found one another randomly, somehow, some way, maybe through a mutual friend or something like that. And so and not saying that you are, but like, don't necessarily fall under the pressures of doing it like it's an obligation. I believe that, I believe Jay Electronica said, I think he got it from Muhammad Ali, our trainers running right on schedule. And I believe there's also an importance of getting the correct 100 rather than the incorrect 1000. You know what I'm saying?
Facts. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So, and as all the frustrations and all of that good stuff that we undoubtedly have gone through and things like that, this is a vocation, this is a passion, this is not anything that we can just give up and be like, fuck it, I'm not reading no more. It just it just doesn't work that way, man. So I would definitely say, just keep the faith. Have you have you considered working with children?
Oh yeah, I definitely considered that. I'm just trying to figure out when I'm gonna have the time and
I
when
see.
or how could that opportunity manifest.
I got you. Yeah, man. Because every time I be dealing with these grown folks, I'll be thinking the ancestor Frederick Douglass be in my ear. You know what I'm saying? It's easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men. And that is the
Facts.
realest. When I tell you, that is the realest of the real talk. You know what I'm saying? Because like, you want to help as many people as you can, and it's like you you want to hold their hand and all this good stuff, but at some point, they gotta walk on their own too. But it's for the adults, it's a process of unlearning and relearning versus children where it's just learning. And that can be an immense difference between the uh outcome that we're both kind of looking for. Those that are truly passionate about bringing everlasting change, I've come to learn that you might have to be satisfied in this lifetime as being the seed planter. um the revolution, as it were, is something that's not going to take is going to take more than one lifetime. And I believe that's what a lot of people are missing, and or not miss or totally misunderstanding, is that we want to get it now, 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 now. But there's a job for the planter, there's a job for the waterer, and then there's the time, for the harvest. And we know we can do all we can to do all we can in the time that we have here and now. But that ultimate change, that utopic change, might have to be from our children or our children's children, kind of thing. But we have to be willing to plant the seed of the oak that we might never get the shade from.
That's definitely a fact, and I definitely agree with that. I totally agree with that. I don't know if anybody, I don't know how often people be on, YouTube or whatever, but you might hear me say that, like on other lives. It's a guy named Pan Africanism Strikes Back. I'm often on his channel, and in the chat I might be like, hey man, you wasting your time, bro. But I definitely agree. Like in pre-colonial West Africa, the kings, people that they conquered, they would take in the conquered leadership's sons, you know what I'm saying, and teach them the way of their ancestors or their culture, you know what I'm saying. And then when they reached a certain age, you know, they would let them become a vassal leader or a vassal king or something like that in order to carry out the will of the culture. So, it is what it is. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, it definitely is what it is now. Speaking of cultures and things like that, getting back onto some of the issues of scholarship and things, um, it seems like a missed understanding is just how cultures come to be, how cultures end up being shared and things like that, like the example that you gave earlier. And it seems like that there is a lot of quote pro Africanist folks who have a disdain towards biblical slash Quranic knowledge and identity, because their claim is that it came from its own separate form of slavery and things like that. As an Africanist and things like that, and we have a deep Islamic based written history in West Africa. How do those things mesh? How does Islam and being an African mesh? Is it something that we were the first for real? Like how some feel like that we were the first of everything, or is it just a consequence of history? How do we deal with that?
It's definitely a consequence of history. Islam. It was Islam in West Africa. It was basically a cultural trade off. They this took place. This took place with people that were already interacting with West Africans,
Hmm.
depending on what area they were. The kingdom was. Some people might have got it later, because of their geographical location, but mainly people like in the Sahel region, in the dry savannah, those were the people that received it because of their vicinity, and
Like through trade, right? Like was it mainly through trade in general?
yeah, for the most part, it was definitely trade, because like I said, you know, they were already interacting with foreign people from further north, in different kingdoms, from different kingdoms, and it was just kind of like uh just a trade off, and a little influence and things of that nature. Now, as far as now, one thing I can say is Islam. It wasn't all that bad, but it would, to me, my exegesis, I would say it's a mix because of some things that I know. I know some of the kings kind of got coerced into it, but ultimately, if it wasn't for Islam, it would be a lot of things that we wouldn't know because the African Muslims, the West African Muslims, they recorded a lot of history using Ajami, which is local languages written in Arabic.
Right,
You know what I'm saying? Or Arabic script, not Arabic, but the script.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. You beat me right to it. Like, so that would be a case of just reading again, just part of the story and not taking in the whole context, because it was more than just the slave trade. There was just actual trade, and then there was the location of these kingdoms. There was just daily and obvious interactions with each other and things like that. So what? But the thing that gets focused on the most is the slave trade, and that's the reason why we're Muslims. That's the reason why we have these Arabic script proclivities, not even knowing Ajami at all. Would you agree with that assessment?
Oh yeah, I definitely think that blaming it all on slavery, I think that's kind of an over generalization. Because now what I can say is Islam in West Africa was was its own doing. Like the people of West Africa, it was done by them. It wasn't. It didn't happen the same way as it did in the Maghreb. The Arabs, they came from Palestine and Egypt, Cairo, and then they came and made jihad on the Berbers. It wasn't like that. The It was kind of more. It was a lot more. What do you say? It was a lot more cooler than that. Uh, and the people that did make jihad, it was local West Africans.
I see. So, like, do you have like a brief overview of how did Islam get to West Africa then, if it wasn't through like the Arab jihad in that sense?
Well, one way I can say, one of the primary ways that it did get through get to West Africa was through one of the earliest urbanized civilizations in West Africa, which is Wagadu, or ancient, what most people call Ghana, ancient Ghana. And the actual name is Wagadu in the Soninke language, but it was called Ghana, and most people call it Ghana, and that's what the modern state is called. They called themselves that in honor of that ancient city, or that ancient polity. But uh, I would say one of the earliest influences was that time, because they were Sahelian West Africans. They were already trading with Amazigan or Berbers.
I see.
They already had previous. They were already competing for resources. It was already slave trade, even though it probably wasn't as big. But and Berbers, they always kind of rated. They always rated you know polities that were further south for slaves. I hate to say that, but it's just a fact. Uh, they were always in contact with West Africans in the dry savannah. Uh, but when Wagadu popped up, you know, you kind of had a Islamic influence already in North Africa, and due to the vicinity of Wagadu, which was around south, I believe southeast or southwest Mauritania. I think it was southeast Mauritania, and it might have expanded all the way to southwest Mauritania, in northern Senegal, in northern Mali, other parts like that. Uh, you know, so the people of Ouagadougou, they were big traders in the Sahel and the Sahara, and they were set up. They set up little kind of like ancient hotels. So Berbers from the north could come stay over there while they trade. While they come trade with the Soninkes or the Mende people. They had a big gold and salt trade and other things of that nature. So the Sahara is so big, it's so vast, that they weren't about to come over there for who knows what amount of days. And I do know it. I just can't give you verbatim
Mhm.
number, but they weren't about to go over there and just leave. So they set up little places where they could stay.
Right.
And when people stay somewhere, for overnight or a couple days, it's gonna be some type of interaction.
Right.
Little kids, they kids might come play with the local kids, and talk about Islam or talk about this God and all that. It was just all type of stuff. And it was cultural interaction. It was stuff like that, trade offs, and you know then you already had Islamic activity going on in North Africa. You know, the Arabs, they already kind of spread their influence to Spain, Andalus, and then you had these radical Muslims, like, which were Berbers, because they felt racialized by Arabs. They were getting the short end of the stick by Arabs. So they formed their own Malachite form of Islam. And then you had this Berber named Abdullah ibn Yassin. He started preaching about his form of Islam, in that region. So it doesn't matter. It could have been Tuareg, it could have been Soninke, it could have been Proto Fulani people. Either way, those people got influenced with that, with that teaching,
Right.
and that's ultimately that's how it happened. And a lot of these people in Wagadu, they would employ Islamic judges, which we call, man, I forgot the word. I forgot the Arabic term for a judge. But basically, they would employ Islamic judges, to execute whatever in the courts. They helped them out. They participated in administration. You know what I'm saying? So that's basically how things kicked off as far as Islam in West Africa. Now there may be some earlier contacts, with Islamic people or Islamic influenced people, but these what I'm speaking of. These are some of the most what would I say? These are some of the most important, contacts with the Islamic world that ended up kicking off, Islam in West Africa.
I see. Yeah, and it's so strange on a couple of things. Like while you was talking, I was thinking like I think another issue um when we think of our people in this particular context, if we even think about them in this particular context, because whether it's the Atlantic slave trade or the Arabic slave trade, it seems like the main theme that most of our own people have about ourselves is as slaves and not as contributors and givers and receivers of culture during that period of time. Um, so it's a weird thing. It's like that self hatred and confusion really burns deep in the consciousness of a lot of our people, even those that have attached themselves to some kind of information. But when it comes to the West African, when it comes to African Americans, the reoccurring theme is slavery and therefore shame. You know what I'm saying? And I believe again that's another reason why a lot of our people don't embrace our own ancestors.
Facts. And see, what I want to say to that is, you know, if it helps, a lot of people went through slavery.
Yeah,
A lot of people went through slavery. You gotta follow. If you got time, whenever you got time, if you don't want to spend all day, reading it in depth, you need to search up Thomas Sowell. I know a lot of people don't
yeah,
like Thomas Sowell, but Thomas Sowell is a teacher to the African Americans. I know he's an economist, but economists, they have to have a base in history
mhm,
because they develop their economic understanding through history. Because they observe historical, and economic practices, that work, and they compare and contrast those things, and they mix it up with some modern economics in order to come up with a solution, or whatever, to fill in a hole. But
yo, I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, I absolutely agree. It's funny that you bring up Thomas Sowell because I'm actually reading one of his books, Culture and Conquest, or Conquest and Culture. It's one or the other, and he speaks on things like such as slavery, such as the brutality of slavery, things that we thought that were singular to the African American experience. To come to find out, it's not singular to our experience, and that other people have dealt with it as well. And it's another interesting point that you brought up with economics. Is I've been on like my black economic professor kind of trip a lot lately, from Thomas Sowell to Walter Williams to Roland Fryer to Glenn Lowry. Like all of these brothers man, it was especially something that Glenn Lowry dropped yesterday that just had me wanting to throw a book across the room, man. But yeah, it's interesting how economics is more than just about economics. Like, to be a great economist, you have to be a historian. You have to understand the philosophies of what's going on, and you have to be an anthropologist. You have to be a little bit of everything to be a competent economist in that sense. So yeah, man, I've been on that same page as you are. Have you listened to any of the works of like Glenn Lowry, Roland Fryer, Walter Williams, any of these brothers?
Not yet, but I'm definitely gonna check them out. Walter, you said Glenn Lowry and Walter Williams.
Yeah. Uh yeah, Glenn Lowry, Glennloury, and Walter Williams. Um and there's the youngest of the brothers is Roland Fryer. He's actually a current professor at Harvard. His claim to fame was a controversial study that he found that uh police deadly force didn't have a particular bias towards black people. And at the time, folks like Claudine Gay, who just was in the news for the plagiarism thing and all of that good stuff, was one of the ones who was trying to get his tenure stripped and all of these things and all of that. But yeah, that brother was like the youngest tenured professor at Harvard, like I believe like at 26. Brilliant brother. And he a street dude, what I'm saying, like straight from the hood. Like his thing is an interesting fact about him is like he's the last living member of his family. Like all of his family has died, he's like the last one. And I was like, man, that was just kind of earth shattering to me, especially since he doesn't have any children. I don't believe. Well, does he? I don't know. But yeah, look up Roland Fryer, Walter Williams, Glenn Lowry, John McWhorter. um Yeah, those are some brothers that definitely get your thinking cap a rolling. And it's but with Thomas Sowell, man, especially that Culture and Conquest book, and the fact that he actually traveled the world while studying the world, you can definitely tell the difference between some of the things that he's saying that he gathered empirically versus the conceptual knowledge that we have typically just out there, just folks reading and reciting works of others. um Man, the rabbit hole goes deep. You know what I'm saying? It definitely goes deep.
Definitely, yeah, man. Thomas Sowell, he's one of the guys that kind of set me free. A lot of us we have this stigma, like, it's because we black and all that,
Yeah.
bro. Blackness, that was just a tool. That was a tool to control you, or that was a tool to keep you, in a subordinate position or mental state. But slavery was just something that took place that all humans participated in.
Right.
Even West Africans practiced slavery. There was no it was no concept of Africans.
Right.
They only knew of of neighboring kingdoms, neighboring, territories. There was no concept of that. There was no concept of blackness. I'm just being real.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the people had information. They probably had the knowledge. They had common sense. Like, okay, yeah, this person, he has a similar, people in my area have similar skin tones to me. Okay. I'm pretty sure all ancient humans, dealt with that. But, there was the things that we deal with now, those concepts didn't exist. The reason why the Mali Empire exists or existed is because of slavery.
Mm,
The
mhm,
Susu, the
mhm.
Susu, which is another Mende people, they were, matter of fact, they were subordinate to Ghana or Wagadu, and they took advantage of the Moors. When the Moors caused instability in Ghana, they took advantage of that and they weakened the empire, And then when they started building strength in the land of Mandan, you know, they were enslaving weaker kingdoms. And when Sunjata came, when Sunjata came, he had the prowess, to get together a band of people or a band of polities and go to war with these guys, the Susu. It was people in West Africa doing this stuff. And I'm not trying to turn you guys against, you know, having love for your mother continent. I'm just speaking historical facts. Before the Europeans enslaved anybody else, they practiced slavery in their continent, amongst weaker people, people they may not have the same structure or political structure, and they might not have had the same technologies, or they might have had more primitive weapons,
Right.
where they couldn't defend themselves to the weaponry that they might have had at the time. The Mamluks, they were Turkish people, and they were enslaved by the Arabs, and they were brought to Egypt. They were brought to Egypt, but did they, did they deny what happened? No, they just played
It
the
is what it
game.
is. Right. Right.
Yeah, they played the game, and they ended up being the elite in Egypt.
Yeah.
You know, so it's to me, when you read the information that these guys like Sowell and Powell produce, you know, it's kind of empowering. You might not like it at
Right.
the time, but it's definitely empowering because you can't change the history. You can't change the history, but you can definitely change what's gonna happen next. You can change the future, you know.
We've always been the people of working with what we got in front of us. You know what I'm saying? And it's a mindset. It's a victor versus a victim mindset that we must employ, so we can navigate in such a way that we see ourselves as the head and not tail. Like, our ancestors over here that grew up in the church. You know what I'm saying? We've had all these sayings that we've been saying since forever, and somehow we've migrated away from the power of these sayings of affirmation, like I'm the head and not the tail, and no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Greater he that is in me than he that is in the world, and things like that. These were words of affirmation that our grandmothers and grandfathers would put over us as we go into an indifferent and sometimes hostile environment. And I believe, and the the migration away from it now in the most popular sense seems to be more so out of spite, because they have shame of some of their Judeo-Christian heritage based off of the consequence of history of being African American in this country. Um, and they might migrate to Kemet, migrate to Ifa, migrate to all of these other things, not because it's a alternative or a better path, but more so just to spite the thing that they're most ashamed of, which is themselves. And that shit is deep.
I definitely agree with that for sure.
Yeah, man. So we about to wrap up, man. Like, man, an hour flies by. We are at 55 minutes and 11 seconds. Dope. Got to look up that number later. But those that are still here with us, man, I appreciate y'all. And we always like to leave time open for a little Q&A. I think there was a question earlier. I hope the brother is still here. Lee Avery asked around the time we first started, is Pan-African and Africanist the same thing?
I'm pretty sure it probably is, but I just
Like to give it its own flair.
yeah, I like to do that, and I kind of just took influence from just just understanding other like people that study certain things, and I just said, you know what, I'm just an Africanist because the main reason is because Pan Africanist it has a good thing to it. It has good baggage with it, but it also has a lot of bad. It has a lot of bad. What do you say? Publicization. A lot
Right.
of bad. Baggage with it as far as the public goes.
Yeah.
So I can't really explain myself to people all the time, but I just want
Facts.
people to know that I got my own mind, and I am pro Africa, but I'm just not on. I'm not always on the same wave as everybody else.
Man, brother, you are preaching to the choir, man. That's the same thing with me over here. Moa, is a derivative of the word meaning the words meaning I am in the Yoruba. Like, I think one of the things that make us unique as African Americans is our ability to self-create. We had to take the shards of a foreign language and develop an identity within it, and to me, that's not something to be ashamed of. That's one of the most things to be proud of. How can you strip a person totally away from their culture, their religion, their language, and things like that? Give them shards of information, and all that says is nigger, boy, wench, and so on and so forth. We still found a way to develop a vocabulary, to still develop the mathematicians, the architects, the inventors, and the musicians, and everything that we are today, even when everything was stripped away from us. That to me is the earmark of a tremendous people that anybody would be crazy not to be proud of. So, for those that are listening, here, take pride in the ancestry that you actually are. And then come on, this is it right here. I don't like when they try and tell people who's African and who's not. Yo, I swear I just had this conversation. It's the weirdest thing. It's like these niggas be like the Ku Klux Klan wearing kente, cuz like
Yep,
I don't understand these dudes. You know what I'm saying?
yep,
Like they speak some of the most heinous and hateful shit to their own people while claiming like they are the ones that's going to be the one that leads us to the promised land. Disrespecting like our ancestors like Dr. King and so on and so forth. He was a child genius that always gets overlooked or whatever. But at least these people actually had action behind their rhetoric. And that's the main difference between now and excuse me, now and then, because they had leaders then. Today we more so have merchants. We have influencers. We have corporate sponsored. The revolution brought to you by Pepsi ass niggas. You know what I'm saying? So we're not going to be able to find true freedom from these people or even true information, because at the end of the day, for them, it's just entertainment. But man,
facts.
but I could go on and on all day, but I want to keep it within the time frame. We got to get you back on here at another time, brother, and continue to expand upon this conversation. I would like to thank everybody who came to this episode of the Philosopher Study, man. 6 people tuned in. I appreciate y'all. I think we had a few more here and there. Shout out to Cognitive Immersion. Shout out to Body Butter Plug. Shout out to Newbie. Shout out to Hugh Rose. Shout out to Ali. Shout out to Lee Avery. Shout out to Larry Jones. Shout out to everybody who came through. And as Hove said, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you here with me, and we appreciate that. And we'll see y'all next time on the Philosopher's Study. Peace.